You can start over.
I'll do a brief summary. Right. Okay, so we're continuing this study on prayer. Hey, Julian. We'll just pause and introduce Julia Clark. She's here from Pepperdine, from California, recent graduate of Pepperdine University. His ministry intern will be with us for up to a year, and right now staying with John and Rosemary. So welcome. I'm glad that you're here. Yes, Robert.
Oh, yes, Chris. Would you mind pointing out to me in the contents, the two chapters you're referring to?
I don't have my book with me, but I would be glad to
Oh, thank you.
look at your table of contents.
Thank you.
Right, so we are 12 and 13.
Thank you so much.
All right, so we're continuing our study, James Martin, Learning to Pray. We're taking up 2 chapters today, the chapters on Lectio Divina and contemplation. So I'm just gonna walk through these 2 prayer practices, but both of them are just slightly different ways of praying through Scripture. And then we're gonna take some time to actually practice both of these and sort of talk about that experience together. So similar to last week was more experiential. We're doing that again today. Okay. So Lectio Divina literally means divine reading. It's an ancient way of praying through Scripture, trying to listen to God through Scripture. So this is my summary, not necessarily James Martin summary. 4 words. First one is read. So we take a text, a short text, not an entire chapter, something that we can really chew on for a while, and we read it slowly, prayerfully, thoughtfully, and we just keep reading it until a word or phrase catches our attention. That's the first step. The next step is reflect. So a word or phrase has caught our attention, and so now we reflect on it. We ask questions about it. Why did God give me that word or phrase today? What's going on in my life that needs that word or phrase? What might God be trying to tell me through that word or phrase? Third step is to respond. So we've listened to God, a word or phrase has caught our attention. We've pondered it, we've reflected on it, we've considered some reasons why God may be giving us that word or phrase. Now we respond in prayer. So we've listened, now we're responding. And if that word has encouraged us, we might give thanks to God for it. If that word has challenged us in some way, we might confess to God. We might talk to God about how we want to apply that word in our life later that week. If something, that word is realized that we need some help with something, we request help from God. And then the last word is rest. So in Lectio Divina, the last step is just to pause and just to be with God. So we've listened, we've talked, and now we're just gonna spend some time with him, just be with God. So that's called Lectio Divina. It's a way of listening and praying to God through Scripture. And in just a moment, we'll practice this together on a particular Scripture. Contemplation is similar, but requires a little bit more work on our part. Contemplation is really only works with narrative texts. So it's hard to do this with like the Pauline epistles or the book of Leviticus or something like that. But it works great with the Gospels, with narrative texts. And the primary function here is to enter into the scene of a text, to place yourself in the scene of a text. So 3 steps, and this comes right out of James Martin's book here. So the first step is to compose the scene. Compose the scene. To try to picture in your mind the scene that you're considering, the narrative that you're considering, perhaps something from the Gospels. And the way of composing it is to engage, to ask questions of all of your senses here. Okay, so as I enter the scene, of this narrative, what do I see? What do the surroundings look like? What do the people look like? What are they wearing? What expressions do I notice on their face? And where am I in the scene? And so you might be one of the characters that are named in the scene. You might be some bystander that's sort of standing outside of the scene. If you want to be Jesus in the scene, you can be Jesus in the scene. That's just fine. So, sort of place yourself in the scene. So what do you see? What do you hear? So you try in your imagination, you try to allow yourself to hear. I mean, if there are animals present, what do they sound like? If there are people present, what do their voices sound like? If this is taking place outside, are there some external noises? Is there wind blowing? If they're out on the lake, is the sound of the water splashing up on the boat? Is that making noises? What sounds do you hear? Smell? Is this a meal setting? If so, what does that food smell like? Is it indoor? Maybe the people are smelling. What do they smell like? Just engage that sense there. If you're outside, is there the smell of flowers or trees or just what do you notice smell wise? Taste. Again, if it's a meal scene, what does that food taste like? Pretend that you're trying it out. And touch. Is there a sensation of heat or cold on your skin? Maybe you're wearing the clothes that the people are wearing. What do they feel like? Are they rough? Are they cool? Just engage your sense of touch. So this first step, which is really the hard work, is to completely imagine this scene, this narrative, using all of your senses and placing yourself in the scene. The second step then is to basically pay attention. Okay, I've composed the scene. I've got it in my mind. I can see myself in that scene. So as I just kind of hang out in the scene, what do I notice? Again, what catches my attention? Maybe it's something I see. Maybe it's a smell. Maybe it's something I hear. Maybe Jesus is teaching and I hear something. What catches my attention? And so we focus on that. And in a way that's similar to Lectio Divina, we sort of ask God, okay, why am I focused on the sound of wind in this scene? Or why does this particular taste or smell capture my attention in this moment? Or why is this person in the scene catching my attention? And we sort of talk to God about that. And then the final step is sort of come back out of that scene and to spend some time essentially journaling, recording, okay, what did we experience as we did that? What insights did we feel like we learned? What emotions were we experiencing? What desires were raised in us? Did any memories come to mind as we were sitting there in that scene? What feelings did that scene elicit from us? And we try to get that out and sort of analyze it, reflect on it, ponder it together with God. So that's contemplation, praying with our imagination. Okay. So we're going to do both of these and then sort of talk about the experience. Okay. So we're all going to use the same text here, and we're going to use this text for both of these. We're going to start with Lectio Divina because it's a little less work. So everybody's got some paper and some pens right there. And so I'm going to lead us through sort of a group experience of Lectio Divina. So what I want to invite you to do is just relax. If you want to, you can close your eyes. I'm going to read this text a couple of times slowly. And as I read it, just pay attention, listen for a word or phrase that catches your attention, and jot that word or phrase down on a piece of paper. Okay. On that day, when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was. And other boats were with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" And he awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was great calm. I'll read it again. Just listen for a word or phrase that catches your attention, and jot that word or phrase down. On that day, when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was. And other boats were with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" And he awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was great calm. So jot down a word or phrase that catches your attention. And before we reflect, let's just take a quick survey to hear what word or phrase did you write down? Just pop it out.
Peace, be still.
Peace, be still.
There was great calm.
There was great calm. Sheldon,
He woke.
he awoke. Okay. What else?
He rebuked the wind.
He rebuked the wind. Anybody else?
Do you not care?
Do you not care? Okay. Filling. It was already filling.
That's a painting that we looked at Friday.
Yeah. Eugene Delacroix's painting in the Met. All right, so let's reflect. Oh, Craig.
Yeah, and I wrote down the waves were breaking into the boat, and that they were in trouble.
They were, yeah.
Trouble.
Okay, good. All right, so let's reflect on that word or phrase that you wrote down. What is it about that word or phrase that has caught your attention? Why do you think God brought that to mind? What might God be saying to you through it? What in your life needs to hear that word? So take a moment or two here just to reflect on that. All right, anybody want to share what they reflected on? What came to you as you reflected on that word or that phrase? Robert?
I was thinking about, kind of interesting, how it says, teacher, do you not care? They say, teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? And it's kind of ironic, right after that, Jesus stills everything, makes everything peaceful.
Mhm.
And I just say to them, oh, you have a little faith.
Mm, mm,
That comes to my mind, yeah.
okay, good. Thank you, Robert. What did you reflect on regarding that word or phrase? And Jane, we see you. We're glad that you're with us.
I'm glad that I am here as well. I apologize for having just as I came to sit down, I spilled my tea, so I turned my video off. I've been listening, but I've been cleaning up my mess. Thank you, Chris.
I focused on peace, be still, and I'm reminded somewhere else in scripture, it says, be still and know that I am God.
Mm,
Psalm 46:10.
that's right.
You know, that's-
The phrase that I always focus on in this text is the other side. I don't know where I picked up this notion, but the other side was not someplace, certainly, that the disciples wanted to go. It was, those are not our folks over there. And why are we going over there? Kind of I'm sure I read that in some commentary somewhere along the way, but it makes a lot of sense to me. And so they're almost happy when the windstorm comes up. It's, whew, wake him up, maybe he'll tell us to turn back. And so I find this a little bit of humor in it. I mean, I cannot personally vouch for the correctness of that context, but if you read on later, when they got there, it surely was not a pretty scene at all. I can sort of understand why the disciples maybe didn't want to go. So that other side always captivates me when I mess around with this story, because I think there's a great lesson for us there as well. Whatever the other side is for us, the place we don't want to go. And chances are, Jesus is gonna just keep insisting.
Very insightful. Thank you, Jane.
Well, not mine, it's a borrowed insight, but I'm happy to be able to share it.
Rosemary, you had your hand up.
Well, I focused on, maybe it's because the child in me always picking on the last thing you hear. And then there was great calm. And then I look over at John's and he focused on peace, be still. And it sent me last night to introducing our family to Julia. And it was chaos. It's loud. It's a frenzy. There's nothing calm or peaceful or still about our household. And then I think, oh my goodness, did we do something wrong? I thought there was a great, and at our house there was a great celebration. And peace be wild. Peace be, we're full of all the things that this means, but in a different translation.
So
there be a great celebration is maybe is calming.
Okay.
Well, there are days when we think we're taking water too.
Yeah. So peace can be experienced in ways beyond stillness, right? Yeah. Good. All right. So just managing our time, let's take a moment silently If you want to write, you can. I won't ask you to share. You want to just do this silently in your mind. Respond to God. Talk to God about this phrase that has captured your attention and you have reflected on. Take a moment to do that. And then let's just take a second to rest, to be with God. Having heard from him, having talked to him, just rest for a moment in the presence of God. Okay, so those are the 4 steps of Lectio Divina. It's a way of praying through scripture. You could take that same text every day this week and follow those 4 steps. And it could be that each time a different word or phrase sort of captures your attention. And that's the neat thing about the way God speaks to us through scripture is it's living and active. And so it can say different things to us every day, depending on what's going on in our day. So read, reflect, respond, and rest. So the second way of praying through scripture that James Martin talks about is contemplation. And this relies less on the literal words of scripture. We kind of need those words to have this general sense of the scene that we're looking at. But this relies a lot more on our own imagination. And it requires a bit of faith here. To believe that God can and will speak to us through our imagination and not just through the literal words of scripture. So let's give this a chance. And so the first step in this is we're not reading the text necessarily, we're leaving it up here. So that remember, okay, this in general, here's the scene that we're going to compose. The work in the first step is for you to compose a scene in your mind. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you taste? What do you touch as you reconstruct this scene in your own imagination? If it helps, you can jot down some details on a sheet of paper, or you can draw a picture on the sheet of paper that helps you construct the scene. But the first step here is to construct the scene, and then we're going to try to focus and to find some detail in that scene that catches your attention. Okay, so I'm going to give you a minute to try to compose this scene in your mind or on that piece of paper. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you taste? What do you touch? What do you smell? Just compose that scene in your mind. All right, so let's just share for a little bit. what about that scene, as you try to recompose it in your mind, what catches your attention? Guy?
Honestly, I cannot stop thinking about the recent events in my country. Um, As you know, there have been a couple of 15 or 17 people that were captured. There was supposed to be the mercenaries that killed the president. And there's been several school of thoughts. Some say they were hired by the president to help in the game situation. They were not actually the mercenaries. And as I'm looking at these people parading in front of the newspaper as criminals, I cannot help think, what if they are innocent, the sacrificial lambs for the chaos, because we don't know the truth. And I cannot stop thinking, relating to Jesus' arrestation, Jesus in front of Pilate, being innocent when everybody were convinced that he was a criminal. So it's really a hard part. Every time I see them, I cannot stop thinking about what if, even if not all of them, what if a couple of them are innocent. So as I'm thinking, trying to contemplate, try and look at this, putting myself in their shoes, basically thinking of asking God, well, if they are innocent, to find a way to protect them, because they may not have the power of resurrection that Jesus did. But to only see them in the light of hardcore criminals who kill the president, if they are in fact, it's like stealing their humanity.
Yeah, so it's really interesting how, I mean, so what's happening in your country, it breaks into this scene here, and it really becomes another way of continuing to think about that. So you're drawn to Jesus' character here as one who's innocent, and then after this is going to be condemned in spite of his innocence. And so it leads you to think about those in Haiti as well, who may be suffering something similar. Okay. Good, thank you for sharing that. What else? A detail as you reconstruct the scene in your own mind, a detail that catches your attention.
Chris, I'm always the helmsman in my life. And sometimes it's not fun to be a helmsman, especially when things, when you're encountering tough weather. And I'm reminded I don't have to be the helmsman in this case. And God made the situation better. It didn't rely on whoever was on the helm.
Okay, very good. Good, thank you.
I've never spent a lot of time on the water, but what came to my mind one or two times, I can think of two times when I was out on the water with friends, and a little storm. I don't think, not a great windstorm did not arise, but a little storm blew by. The smells and the feel of the wind whipping around, and especially the smell, when the water is kind of spraying and breaking over you a little bit. I guess I was influenced by, those words you smell, taste, touch, hear, the sounds of the wind, the sounds of the boat even creaking a little bit, sails, that sort of thing. Was just what popped into my mind. I have no excuse for it or explanation, but there it was.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Jane. Yeah. So my watch has a little thing that taps me if the noise is too loud, above 90 decibels or something like that. I bet that's what would be going on in this boat. I mean, so many lightning, wind, rain, the boat creaking. It was probably very noisy, very loud. So that caught Jane's attention there. See,
I was kind of along the same lines with Jane, and I was thinking kind of the difference between the salt water and the fresh water. The spray of the ocean waves and stuff hitting, but yet the fresh water of the rain that would come down, how it's different. The taste is different. It's just that's just kind of was the. I was thinking you have both of that
Okay.
happening at that same time. You're taking on water from both ways.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it would be very scary.
Yeah, it's coming at you from below and from
And
above.
from above, yes.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, good. So in this way of praying scripture, then we take that detail, let's say it was a taste or a sound or thoughts about Jesus, and then we sort of contemplate it. Why am I drawn to that today? What is it about my life that needs that detail today? So we're not drawn to a word in the text. We're drawn to a detail in this reconstruction in our mind and asking questions about it. Chris.
I had to go upstairs and help set up for today's sermon, so I wasn't here for the entire conversation, but I was here for the first reading. Just the idea of waves. I went to, somebody once told me that life is like a wave, that sometimes it's calm, sometimes it's very dangerous, storm, stuff like that. So, and so that's what I keep thinking of is, that, life is like a wave. Sometimes it's calm, but sometimes it's also very stormy, very loud, a lot of stuff going on.
Okay. Yeah. Good. So so we don't have time to do this today, but we'd spend some time reflecting on that, and then once that we feel like that's done, then we take some time on the other side of this to try to record what were we feeling as we imagined all that. What were some of the insights that we gained as a result of that? What questions might have come to our mind as we did that? Even memories that may have stirred, like Jane, those memories of being on a boat when a small storm has come up. And then, that allows us to continue to process and prayerfully talk to God about what we've experienced in this text. So 2 different ways of praying through scripture. One, really relying on the literal words of scripture, believing that God will speak to us as we listen for a word or phrase that catches our attention. The other, much more imaginative. We compose that scene, and then we trust that God's going to speak to us through a detail in that text, and we talk to him about it. So 2 different ways of listening and then praying to God through scripture. So our time is basically up. Dale will be here next Sunday and do part 2 of what he started a couple weeks ago. So Jane, Craig, we're so glad that you joined us online, and the rest of you, thanks for being here on site.
Good job, Chris. Thank you.